Hi. I love being back on Instagram, and I'm really excited to be back with Anthony Johnson. He's known as the co-parenting or AJ, the co-parenting coach. And we're going to talk about competitive parenting and parallel parenting. And let me see if he's here yet. But I love Anthony's content, especially his videos, even though he doesn't always. There he is. Okay, I see you, Anthony. Let me try to get this on. But Anthony, I was just saying, I love your content. It's not letting me. It's not letting me get you on here. It's not letting me. All right, Anthony, if you can request to join because it's not letting me do it. Oh wait, maybe it is. Maybe not. How you doing?
I'm good. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes. It was just a
Good,
great
good, good.
screen per minute. But I was saying I love your content, and you don't only deal with the extraordinary high conflict stuff that we do,
Right.
but of course it applies. So I know that our clients together, our shared community, often are dealing with co-parenting, whether it's high conflict or
Mhm.
lower conflict. But
Yeah.
whatever the case, they need help with co-parenting, parallel parenting, counter parenting. So in our world of high conflict, often when a couple splits up because one person has some kind of serious issue, they 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 feel like the way that they can continue to exert power and control over their ex instead of moving forward in a healthy relationship is to make disparaging comments about the other parent.
Right.
And because they feel like you're with the child either loves me or is against me.
Right.
So in order to love me, you have to sort of not show affection or love toward the other parent. And I know, Anthony, like I said, this is not something that's always in your world, but it's usually in our clients' world. So I wanted to talk about that today because of the recent video you posted. Can you maybe get into what can a targeted parent, like someone who's having negative things said about them by the other parent, what can they do when their child is being exposed to these negative messages? Because it's awful.
Right. So I'm actually dealing with this more than, I see it all the time because even though I'm talking about most of the time I'm trying to talk about positive co-parenting, how to be cordial with your co-parent and that side of things, the people that are coming for help are experiencing exactly what you're talking about. Right.
Really?
So yeah, so if I am, so there's two sides of this, right? When it comes to the disparate, like the comments that you're getting from the parent that are really like, negative, right? You have the procedural part, right? And you have like the personal part. Like, what do I do personally? So you may, I'm sure you help people with the procedural part a lot. Like the procedural part, well, you have your steps, right? You go through your motions of, okay, well, I'm going to try to talk to the other parent. Well, obviously, if that's not going to work, then I got to go through, maybe I got to put it in my parenting plan. And if it's not, and then if that doesn't work, then maybe I need to file for a change, to change the parenting plan, right? That's the procedural part, all right? But then emotionally and like just how you handle it on the day to day, I think one of the main things that I tell people is that to avoid the need to get super defensive, right? Right? Like a lot of people, when the other parent is saying negative things about them, they want to go on the defense. And
To the
ironically,
child? You mean directly to the child?
directly to the child, right? They want to combat all the negative things that the other parent is saying against them. And and really ironically, going on the defense so much makes people look guilty. Right? So when it's like you really have to. I love a quote by Brene Brown. Brene Brown has one of my favorite quotes when it comes to defending yourself, and she's like, she says, you don't shrink, you don't puff up, but you stay in your sacred ground. All right, so you don't have to shrink and like allow yourself to be this punching bag. You don't have to puff up and defend yourself all the time, right? But you just stand your sacred ground. Like if your kids are old enough where they're coming to you and they're asking you about these things, you can say something simple like that's not true and not necessarily defend yourself, right? You can have these adult conversations. You can have these conversations with your children on a level that's age appropriate, right? And then you do the internal work, right? The figuring out what why, if you feel like you need to defend yourself, why do I have to defend myself? Why do I feel the need to defend myself? What makes me, is there some insecurity issues that I'm having that I got to combat, right? That internal work to do, right? Um, and then you just be the model of what good parenting looks like.
Yeah, easier said than done. So Anthony, I didn't formally introduce you. Now that we've gotten to one of the big questions, can you say exactly who you are for people who don't know already?
So I'm Anthony Johnson. I'm a co-parenting coach, leadership consultant, and I'm actually moving like into more of the healing space of co-parenting, right? Of the results of co-parenting with toxic people, narcissistic abuse. Because what I'm finding with pretty much all of my clients, like I would say all of my clients, right? We get to a certain point where you can only go so far in co-parenting, right? Because you can only control what you can control. But what we have to do is figure out, okay, now how did we get here? What's going on inside of you that got you to this place? That's getting in the way of you setting boundaries. That's making you feel like you're not enough. That is, whatever, all that other stuff that comes with it, right? How do we heal those things?
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited because that's what we need. You know, we're working on a book now about how to handle when your toxic ex is trying to brainwash the kids against you in court and in life. So I'm thrilled to hear what you just said about that. You're working on more of the healing stuff because this is one of the biggest issues in our community. I feel like doing this to children is a form of child abuse.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
a form of domestic violence to try to turn kids against another parent in these loyalty conflicts. And it's heartbreaking. We see it happen to men as well as many, many women. And people are so ashamed to talk about it because they feel like, oh no, I'm already in the middle of this crazy divorce and now my kids aren't talking to me. And most people will think something's wrong with me,
Right,
right?
right. That's the healing part, right? The shame that you might feel, or the guilt that you might feel from having to separate, right? Or what it's going to do to your kids, or a failed marriage or a failed relationship. The guilt that comes with that. How are you managing that? Because that may be the real issue of why you can't move forward effectively, because you're dealing with so much guilt, and now you're working overtime to combat the guilt. And then the focus is that by default takes the focus off of the children and onto you.
Exactly, exactly. So what makes you so good at your job?
Um, uh, that's an interesting question. Like, what makes me so good at my job? I was thinking about that, and I think what makes me really good at my job is that I'm very objective, um, and I do really care and focus on what's happening beneath the surface. Because what you find is that when people come to you for coaching, unless they're coming to you for something very specific, like legal advice or like plans or things like that, the problem is never the problem, right? So you have to find out what's going on beneath the surface in order to solve the problem. And I'm very good at finding out what's going on beneath the surface, so this never becomes a problem again,
That's
right? And you
great.
change your relationship. So
Now,
I think that's what makes me good at my job, and I just genuinely care about people.
yeah, now Anthony, this isn't the first time that we've done a live together, and I know there's some things in your background that also add like some experience that you have career-wise that's kind of interesting and probably surprising. Do you want to get into that? Which adds to your, you know, your wisdom and experience.
So I have my military background. I spent 15 years in the Army before I transferred to the Air Force. I was an instructor, leadership instructor, did a lot of that in the Army. I was also a sexual assault response coordinator for the Air Force. So if somebody was a survivor of sexual assault, I was the person that they would come to report, and I would guide them through the investigation process, and I would kind of counsel them and be their liaison throughout the entire process. So I've done quite a bit of counseling and coaching to survivors of sexual assault. And they all of, in my experience, in my time in the Air Force with that, they were all women, and they were all mothers.
Yeah, I think you need to make sure you always mention that because I think there's a lack of trauma informed professionals in general. And so
hmm
for people to know that you have that background, you have tremendous experience dealing with domestic violence, specifically mothers and women involved in domestic violence. You know, we have predominantly female clients, but we've been picking up a lot more male clients as well.
hmm
So I think it's important to note that that especially in the area of parenting, it's men and women who are dealing with difficult exes too, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So talk about this is a little bit different, but have you ever heard of the term competitive parenting?
Yes. Yes, I've
Okay.
heard that.
Can you talk about that? Like, how often do you see it? Why do people do it?
I see it all the time, and I see, competitive parenting, basically like comparing your parenting style, right, to the other parent, and and trying to undermine and one up the other parent, right, based on, whatever you have going on, right, whatever your stuff is, right, and this happens for so many reasons, right, like, and whether it's you know, like you said, that I want the child to love me more. I want the child to adopt, my parenting style more, and that comes from people's own insecurities. And it comes from, a place of being unhealed is what I really believe that it boils down to. It's just a place of being unhealed. And like, if I have to, when I'm in a healthy place, if I can be more collaborative than I am like competitive, right? If I can look at it from a place of like, all right, this is it's not me versus you. It's like that saying, it's not me versus you, it's us versus the problem, or us
Mm,
versus the situation. Like it's us raising our child. That's what we're working towards here. It's not me trying to be a better father or a better mother. Like and who the kid sees that. It's us working together. Like we're a team. Um, And so when like dads, I think dads want to be like, in my experience, dads want to be like the final decision makers. Right. And so if they feel like they're being undermined, their decisions are being undermined by the mom, then that strikes a chord with them, with their ego. Right. So with men, I think ego gets in the way of a lot.
that's so interesting because in our world, mothers tend to want to be the final decision makers because they're like, I'm the primary caregiver more of the time, so I should be the one.
hmm and I get that. And men just have this ego where they feel like it doesn't matter how involved, like who's the primary decision maker or who's the primary caretaker. I'm the man, so I get the final say, right? And and that's the way it should be, even if I'm not super involved. Like it's a weird thing that men feel like they should have that type of decision making power, and when they're not completely involved, right? Um, and and so if you're if you're the primary, if you have primary custody, and I think it makes sense for you to be the final decision maker when it comes to a lot of things because you're in it, right?
Yeah. But be careful, you're going to get people jumping on you for saying that, Anthony, even though you just got some love, some little hearts
Right.
bubble up.
And that's okay. But that's okay. That's completely fine. Right? Like people can can that's what I'm here for. If I'm on a platform, right, and I'm giving my opinion about anything, I have to be prepared for whatever can come with that. Whatever any kind of dispute or any kind of disagreement, I have to be able to enter a conversation about that and listen to where and even accept the possibility that I could be wrong. Right? So let me hear what you think about it and let me not let my ego get in the way and think that I'm right about everything and maybe even shift my perspective on something. Right?
Love it.
But
Yep.
right.
I wish the world could be more like that, right? Like we can actually listen to each other. People can disagree, present their point of view, and just hear each other, whether you agree or not, because you could change your mind. I mean, that's the art of debate
hmm Yeah, and
and
it is the art of
education.
it. And it's what gets in the way of collaborative parenting and why people what we're talking about, why people get competitive. Because they haven't got to that space of healing where they can accept somebody disagreeing with them, right? Because if what's going on, for example, if what's going on beneath the surface is I grew up in a household where I was never heard, then I just want to be heard. Like, I'm going to tell you what I think all the time. And even if it's causing issues, right? I have a client that feels like she has to say everything she has a problem with, she has to voice it. She's going to put it in the email. She's going to put it in the text. She's going to send even the smallest things. But one of the things that she had an issue with was she hasn't been heard in,
Mm.
in her in her previous relationships, in a relationship with her parents. She hasn't been heard. So she's going to make sure right now that she's going to be heard, even if it's to the detriment of that relationship. And I had to get her to see that, right? That
Yeah, so you
everything is
handled that part. And like you said, we do the tactical strategic where we're like, no, we're going to put a muzzle on you. And here's why. And we're going to edit these emails because when you get to court, you're not going to look good. You have to present
right.
properly.
Because people need that too,
Right.
right? Because while they're in the process of figuring it out, um, and so, but without your help, right? Some people will not be able to do that on their own, right? And they may never be able to do that on their own until they heal that part of them, right? Right. So that's what I'm working with people more. So we will in the process we'll do the practical, technical, procedural things. But as we're going through that, we're going to heal that part of you that that continues to make this an issue for you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so important because people do need to get it out. We always say, like, get it out. One of the things we do is we say, get it out, send it to us, and then we'll give it a makeover. But it's
Yes,
not going to the person you want to hear you because that person's probably incapable of hearing you.
absolutely.
And that's why with so much co-parenting, we see, and I'm sure you do too, somebody's like, but I want to explain to my ex why my perspective is right, why
Hmm.
my perspective is better. But with us who are dealing with clients whose exes tend to have personality issues, it doesn't, that's logical and that doesn't work because
Right.
it's viewed as stop telling me what to do. Stop
Right.
acting like you're the authority. And it just
Mhm.
creates more conflict.
Right. Because the logical mind and the conscious mind is saying, I need them to understand me. Right.
Right.
And I just want them to get it. I really just want them to get it. If they could just get it, they could just understand, they would see where I'm coming from.
Right.
Right. But you have to get to what's going on in the subconscious mind. There's stuff going on in the subconscious that, like, you can ask somebody a question in that situation, and a question you could ask someone is like, okay, how well has this worked for you in the past? Oh, it hasn't worked
Exactly.
at all. It hasn't worked at all. Okay, so tell me what will make someone who knows something logically that something hasn't worked in the past, what will make someone continue to pursue an issue knowing it's never worked and it may never work? And then they have to stop and they have to think. And then that's when they start to go into what's going on beneath the surface.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where that's it's a fun place to take people.
I bet. I mean, I love that you make people give pause and
Hmm.
reflect because I think that's the mistake that a lot of us who have been in these relationships made where I know for me, I didn't pause and think ever. I just kind of like let myself be led. I didn't think about what I needed and how everything was contributing
Hmm.
to some of the problems as well. It's that power dynamic. And I think it's so important to do the work with you too, because we don't want to keep repeating these cycles.
Right, right. And you may not even understand why it's happening. So you may need somebody to help you explore that.
Yeah. Oh, great. Okay. So back to those like messages that sometimes we send to our kids. A lot of times it's not always overt. It's not like obvious where you're just making some negative comment about the other parent. It's covert. So can you think of ways that parents might be inadvertently sending negative messages to disparaging that other parent to the child without even realizing it? Because I found like a lot of custody evaluators that I have interviewed have said many times people don't even realize what they're doing. They don't even think that what they're doing is wrong. Do you ever see stuff like that?
Yeah, I see stuff like that. Like, I think it's like it can be in the comments that a lot of it is in the little comments and snide remarks that, like, you're not doing it intentionally, right?
Yeah. Can
And
you give us some examples? Because people, I think when we go through it with our clients, they're like, oh my gosh, oops, I didn't mean to do
yes.
that.
So some of the examples is like, if for example, um like my son, like what I could like my son, he's like, he needs help he needs help with his homework, right? A lot. He needs help with his math homework a lot. And like I could, like I have parents who they're going to undermine the other parent like in little subtle ways, right? If your child comes to help, gets help with their homework, and you're like, oh well, this isn't something your mom's gonna be able to help you with, like
Mm,
like you can't
yeah,
go because you know you can't go to your mom for this, or you can say like, or people say things like, well, you know how your mom is, you know how your dad is, right? Or you know, like, but they're not doing it to be like necessarily malicious,
right.
but you know, and but that's what's happening, right?
Right, because it creates the message of like that other parent isn't very intelligent or isn't as smart as me.
Mm, yeah, and you know there's you know it can even be in forms of like who who you go to for, like you said, who you go to for certain things, right? Well, when it comes to school, if the teacher's sending home information or correspondence, well, you know, make sure that comes to me. You know, make sure I get that. All right. Make sure that doesn't go to your dad. All right.
Interesting. And that's so subtle.
Mm-hmm.
But then what's
Like it's like
the message? What's like the meta message underneath that? When
that
you say something like, what does your child then think from a comment like that?
that dad's irresponsible and they can't handle these things, that mom's more organized and put together, or whatever parent is what, right? You know, make sure I get that and it doesn't go to your dad, or make sure that I get that and it doesn't go to your mom, right? And the message is I'm more responsible and I can handle these things and the other parent can't. Even if you believe that, it's just not a good message to send to your kid, right? Like because there are situations where that is true.
No,
Like that.
certainly, yeah. We're not saying it's not true, but
Yeah,
it's the message that you're sending to your kid, that
it's the
you are
message
sending to your kid.
that I am superior in this area, and I'm verbalizing that, right? And I'm making it known that I'm superior in this area, right? And so, which could cause the child to look at the other parent as inferior, and that's not something I ever want to do, or I ever want to be responsible for if I'm being a responsible, conscious parent.
Yeah. We say that usually with these kinds of behaviors, there, I call it the 3 U's. I did this webinar about this a few weeks ago, but often the messages fall under the categories of that the other parent is unsafe, unloving, or unavailable. Not just less intelligent, but like deeper, like bad. So
Mhm.
they're kind of a bad person.
Yeah, yeah. That's absolutely true. Um, like because you there, I think like, and it goes back to what we've been saying about like I need to send this message to, because there's something going on, like, right, that I need to send this message. I need my kid to know this, and it's unconsciously happening. But you really want them to get that message. Like there's a part of you that I just want my kid to know that
Mm-hmm.
just I want them to know who they are, right? Like I
Well,
really
we
want
hear,
them
I
to
can't
know.
count how many times we hear that.
Like I want them to see like who they are, and like all that does is that puts you. What that does is that kind of puts you on a pedestal, even if you're not trying to do it like maliciously, and it really like diminishes that other parent, and you're the one that's doing it. And what it can do, it can have the opposite effect that you're intending it to have, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is if I'm the child and I love that other parent, and I see them as like, I may see the other parent as amazing, and like I love them, and you're like trying to make me think a certain way about them, like I may resent you for that.
Yeah.
Uh,
And
I'm not
that's important to note, like in someone's quest to say, I need for my kid to see the truth of what that person really is, that it could harm your own relationship with the child. Because again, most kids, I mean, we separate like the abused and domestic violence stuff, but most kids love both parents,
mhm,
especially young kids like who don't know. And so to just have one parent disparage or create suspicion about that other parent, the child gets confused, like a form of cognitive dissonance where they're thinking, I'm hearing this one message from this parent, and then I'm either seeing something different, but my parents don't lie.
Mhm.
So I'm totally confused. Like who is right? Because they're both telling me different things.
Mhm. Yeah, it's hard, and it's hard for a kid, especially young kids, to kind of discern or decipher between the two, like what makes sense. And
Yeah.
like so, I would talk to my son about. Sometimes I would talk to him about how me and his mom are different in different ways, just the way we operate, but not in like just to get him to understand that we do things differently, right? Um, as even when it comes to like I talked about homework earlier, I'm like I'm like, hey, your mom, she does these things because he'll come to me, he'll complain about certain things sometimes, right? Like she's always on me about my homework and doing this, and I'm like, and like he might say like, well, you're not like that. You're not always on my case or in my face. I'm like, well, just because me and your mom love differently. It's not because your mom
Mm.
is nagging or it's nothing ever negative, right? Me and your mom, we show love differently, right? Your mom, the way she shows love is she wants to make sure you're doing the things that you're supposed to do. She doesn't want to see you fail,
Mhm.
right? That's why your mom is on you about your homework because because she cares about you. She doesn't want to see you fail.
Yeah.
And I'm more so where I'm going to let you fail. That's the way I show love. Is I'm going to let you fail and I'm going to let you learn and I'm going to be here when you fall on your face. I'm going to be here to lift you up and support you and talk about what we did wrong and what we can do better. Right? We just show love differently. One is not nagging, one is not better than the other. It's just different.
I
Right?
love it. And unfortunately, I don't think that in our people's world that, that their ex would ever say something so beautiful and fair and so healthy for a child to hear, because statements like that make me think it's not just one person talking about the other parent, it's actually teaching the child about the way the world operates,
Mm-hmm.
that people can do things for different reasons, but maybe they also want the same things,
Mm-hmm.
but they so that's such an important lesson. I just love that.
Mm-hmm. So I was trying to look at some of the comments.
I know, I know. Yeah, they're interesting. When you were talking, I was looking a little too. Um, yeah, somebody just said the latest one is you're born to unconditionally love both parents, even if one parent does something wrong. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why it's tricky too. Is like when kids are in the middle, they often don't know when their parent is doing something wrong and they have to figure it out for themselves. And that takes time and maturity and unfortunately, like however many repeated events, right?
Yeah, yeah. Because it takes like us, usually it takes us as parents to not try to manipulate the situation.
Yeah.
Um, it just can have a negative effect,
Yeah, I was going to say, any other impacts that you think that this kind of disparagement can have on a child overall?
right? Like it forces them in some situations, it forces them to choose, right?
Mhm.
In some situations, it, and what it also can do is like if we're being manipulative and they know what we think about the other parent and how we feel, they can use that to manipulate and play the parents against each other.
Yeah.
Right? So it's you're not you're teaching your kid by manipulating the situation, you're teaching them to manipulate you in some circumstances,
You're
right?
modeling
Yeah,
manipulation.
you're modeling manipulation and like and and then it comes down to I have to think about what is my role as a parent. Like I got it, like you said earlier, I have to teach my kid about how the world works, not how to manipulate the world. Right.
Right.
So
Yeah.
and 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 then it's gonna make me feel that like it also can make a kid feel guilty for loving the parent unconditionally, right?
Hmm.
So if I'm just conveying this message that this person is bad or they're not safe or they're unhealthy or like, but as a kid, I'm like, man, I love my mom, I love my dad. I don't want to think this way about them. And then am I, you know, am I betraying you if I don't feel the same way you feel about them?
Hmm.
It really puts the kid in a bad situation.
Yeah, interestingly, I have an interview right after this with a woman who's a relationship coach, and she grew up in a home where there was high conflict relationship, high conflict divorce, and co-parenting. And she's going to talk about the impact it had on her emotionally. But
Mm,
one of the things I know from interviewing anybody who's ever grown up in a high conflict situation is that kids often learn how to be very emotionally attuned to the needs of their parents.
hmm.
And often this manifests in their relationships later in life where they are people pleasers and they put
Yes.
other people's needs first. And so they don't realize what their own needs are. So it's almost like what I think one of the impacts that this can have on their behavior is when they learn what one parent needs and what they have to do to assuage that person's
Yes.
emotional needs. And do we
Yes.
want our kids to be responsible, like our children to be responsible for our own emotional health? Like, think about the impact that has on them in the moment as children who are trying to figure out what do I have to do to not make this one parent angry. But then as they move out of childhood into life and get into friendships, romantic relationships with others, where they carry that same power dynamic of like, oh, my role is to make sure everyone else is okay.
Yeah. That's too much to put on a kid.
Yeah.
It's too much to put on a kid. Like, I'm whether I'm doing it on purpose or not, I'm being irresponsible. It's irresponsible of me as a parent to do that. And I'm gonna post a video shortly about like share a clip from it's like a podcast. There are people on a panel, and I don't know if you've seen it, but is the two men. There's two men that talk, and they're like, I make sure I tell my I tell my baby mom, make sure my kids call me, make sure make sure they reach out to me. I tell them all the time, make sure they call to check on their dad. Like, and I do not subscribe to that way of thinking, and I think everybody who has an opinion should have a platform to just like spew whatever. But like you, that is not their responsibility. Like they didn't ask to be here. We brought them into this world, and it is our responsibility to check on our kids. It's the other parent's responsibility to facilitate that conversation in a healthy way to make sure they don't restrict it. You know, but it's not the kid's responsibility to be checking up on the parent and calling them and like making sure they're okay. That's not their job.
Right. And we see that a lot, unfortunately.
I don't like it. I personally don't like it. I don't think it should be that way.
Yeah,
Uh,
me neither. Do you think so? I haven't seen that video, and I, of course, will look for it when you post it. But do you think that men and women, or fathers and mothers, do the same kinds of behaviors, or do you notice a difference between men and women and how they do it? I know you had mentioned before about decision making, but you
mhm.
and I have completely different experiences with our own clients.
Yeah, yeah. Well, are most of your clients women, or do you have a mixture, a good mix of both?
Well, we have more women than men, but we have lots of both. Yeah.
Mm. So what I see, what I'm experiencing is like it's like the maternal and paternal differences more so when it comes to what they how women and men will manipulate things, or like they like mothers with their maternal instincts, right? They if your kid gets hurt, like on and you're at a sporting event and your kid gets hurt or something, there's something in the moms that wants that kid, if the mom and dad is there, they want that kid to run to them first. All right. Like like if you're hurt, who are you coming to for like comfort and safety and security and know there and like and so moms will overcompensate, right, sometimes in those areas, like to make sure that I'm taking care of you and like I'm the one you come to for this and like I'm better at this, like I'm
Mommy's
and like
here.
mommy's here, right? And with the dads, it's like, who's my kid coming to when they want advice, right? Like,
Oh,
like when you need advice about something, about how you handle a life situation or school or your dating or whatever, who are you coming to for advice? That's dad, right? I'm the one that's gonna give you all these nuggets of wisdom and like stuff like this, and like they will undermine the mom in that way, so they make sure that they know look, I'm the smarter one, I'm the more logical one, I'm the one you come to when you need advice and things like that. And that's where I see some of the differences in how like men and women are trying to manipulate situations to
Interesting. I found a video, it's a little bit different, but that I posted a couple weeks ago, and it was 4 clips of a toddler running outside to greet grandparents. And in all of them, the grandma knelt down with the big arms, like, ah, and the kid ran right past and went to the grandpa. It was like so cute.
it's like here's what like this may in my experience like this may be like this may ruffle some feathers like people might not like this but what I've seen is like because like moms like they want that they want you to like they like love me I want you to love me like I want to be the one you come to for like that hug and that's and like granddads and like dads they just be I can just be right and like I'm not gonna I don't expect any I don't expect you to love me a certain way. I'm just gonna be here and love you the way that I think you should be loved. Like and I'm not gonna have any expectations of your love to me. That I know that's how I am, right? Like I'm gonna love you in a way that you need to be loved. And like I'm not gonna expect you to return any type of love in any certain way to support my need for love. Right. Um, so like you said, mama bear. My somebody said mama bear protector. It's good to
I
protect the
know.
genes. Like, yeah, you want to be the mama bear, and like pop bear, just like, hey, I'm just here.
Yeah.
All right, you need me, I'm here.
Yeah.
All right, no
Yeah.
expectations.
Speaking of the strategic, we because we work with people dealing with the difficult family court system. We have this quote we say like, if you show up as Mama Bear in the courtroom, you're going to get bitten by the system. So
Mm,
that's one thing, at least in the communication, that uh, women and some men are a little Mama Bearish. Like we got to be really careful again with how you when you're in the middle of something or knowing it's happening, how you are perceived.
yeah,
The other thing is, well, I also love what you said about just being there and loving a child how they need to be loved. I think that's how we all should strive to be, especially in these cases where there's so much conflict swirling around the kids, is to try to be conscious to make sure we're not putting our own emotional needs on them, even subconsciously, which can be hard. And that's why it is so important to do the work. There was a question that came in I saw before that said, how do you like say the other parent is really unsafe? Like how do you teach your kids to reach out when they aren't feeling safe? I have a comment, but I want to hear what you have to say.
what do when you say can you tell me more like when you say if the other parent's unsafe in what way? What do you in what way?
Okay, let me. I don't know if I could scroll back up. Let's see. But it was about like
Reading a comment.
um, how to approach if a parent genuinely can be unsafe at times, like by doing drugs around the kid. Like, how do you teach the kid to keep themselves safe without disparaging the parent? That's a good one.
Um, man, that's a tough one. That's a
It
good
is.
one. That's a very tough one. Like
Yeah.
these are these are the things that um the first thing I'll say is that you gotta this is where procedurally you gotta take action. Like these procedurally this is where you gotta take action and documenting, getting, getting as much information as you can, getting a court order. Like that's how you gotta document, you gotta procedurally take matters into your own hands, right? To get remove your kid from an unsafe environment. Right. Um, but as far as like what I'm going to tell my child, all right, like I'm going to like I'm going to teach my kid, but age appropriately. I'm one of the things I'm going to teach my kid is how to set boundaries. All right, like I
With
have to teach
anybody, right?
with
Not just with that
anybody,
other parent.
with
Right.
anybody, not just with the other parent. Right, so your kid can set boundaries, but they have to do it in a manner that's going to keep them safe too, right? Like that's like because sometimes maybe the other parent, if it's really an unsafe environment, the other parent is not going to like um, the kid setting boundaries, and that may not work to their benefit. So I'm gonna it's gonna be very that's a hard question because it's gonna be very specific to the situation,
Right.
right? It's going to be very specific to the situation. And I have to make sure that like when the kid comes back to me, that I, I am providing that safe space for my kid to vent, to listen, to be heard, to be abnormal. Because I think it's more about what we do when we have the kids, right? Because there's a lot we can't control in that other environment. Like, does the kid, when the kid comes back to me, are they safe to vent, to talk, to be, to even be a little dysregulated and like, feel like they can lash out? Because like sometimes I got to let my kid lash out when they come back to me, and because they're in that environment where they're not safe. Um, so what do you, I'm interested to hear what you have to say about that, because um, I think it's so specific to the situation. It's very nuanced.
Yeah. Okay. And I just got a warning, like, it's time, Lisa, you got to get off soon. So, but I'll say it really quickly. And then I knew, Anthony, I knew our conversation would go long. So it means we have to continue another time. But I agree with what you said. A lot of it isn't just about how to let the kid know that that particular person is unsafe, but basically teaching your kid boundaries and how to protect themselves with anybody. So it's not like you're sending a message about that particular person, but to have it more general. There's books you can read with your kid. I'm getting a call. Um, there, can you hear that? Oh, shoot. I don't know why it's doing that. Anyway, there's books you can read with your kids about teaching them safety, how to protect themselves, what to do when they feel like they're in trouble, reaching out to a responsible adult. This will stop in a second.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry. Yeah, how to reach out to a responsible adult, get other people involved, etc. But it is really tricky, and it depends on the situation.
Mm.
But anyway, so Anthony, before we go, and I know this will not, I hope this will not be our last live interview together because there's so much to talk about. But can you let people know how to find you?
So obviously here, AJ the co-parenting coach on Instagram. I post a lot of my content on TikTok. I'm the co-parenting coach on TikTok. Um, and then so all of my links you can get in my bio. You can get to my podcast. Just go to my bio and go to my podcast. Go to my website. Like and everything. You can reach out to me. Schedule a consultation. It's all in the link in my bio. So that's the simplest way to find me.
Great. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming back on with me. I'm glad this time I got to see your face.
I know. Yeah. So yeah, well, if you like to, we can do this again, and we can talk more about. We can talk about anything.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, someone's asking what's your full name?
Anthony Johnson.
Yes. All right, Anthony, we'll catch up soon.
All
Thank
right,
you so
thank you.
much.
All right, see you
Bye.
later.